I want to answer this one email on the air because I get this probably 25 times a week, okay? In the event we do go to war, do you think we should do as Jesus did and allow the demons to kill us without a fight? Jesus did not allow anyone to kill him. He said, no man takes my life, I lay it down. Or do you think it's okay to take a life in this battle to protect family? Absolutely. Self-defense is a mandatory requirement of the Scripture. Paul said, if any man doesn't provide for his family, he's worse than an infidel. For God to deny self-defense would be to sanction suicide. And that's why, Doug, I believe a false errant understanding of self-defense. Look, even the disciples had to sell their cloaks and buy a couple swords, okay? Paul had to travel with a sword. There were really bad people in Paul's day, but Paul determined nothing was going to stop him until God told him, Paul, your time's up, time to come home. And so, this thing about pacifists, I don't know if you guys saw the biggest story, I believe, was that the DHS has been partnering with churches, and the churches, especially, I think 20 black churches now, are asking their parishioners to turn in their guns, okay?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the greatest crimes that has ever happened is that the idea of self-defense and personal responsibility have never been linked. I can tell you point blank that the idea is simply this. If the Second Amendment goes, you go. And somebody says, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, by the grace of God, I intend to resist evil. Do I believe that I can overcome a hellfire missile from a drone? No, but Jesus can. And until I'm done, they can't take me with a hellfire missile or a sniper's bullet, or in your case, Doug, blowing up your car, or in my case, sending teams from Buffalo. The point is that we have a destiny to fulfill, because God is not going to basically allow the total taking out. Jesus wasn't allowed to be killed. They tried to kill Jesus so many times before the crucifixion, but when the crucifixion time came, Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane asking the Lord to allow him, nevertheless, not to take the cup from him. See, every Christian I know that believes in the pre-tribulation rapture, which, by the way, I believe is the great deception, part of the great deception, because the thing is, those people were given a lie. They believe a lie. Now, what does a lie do when it's believed, okay? Number one, it gives the lie power over you. Number two, it changes your perspective. Number three, it causes you to let off your guard. Number four, it provides an unrealistic expectation. And number six, and maybe even number six and seven, is it gives you a hope that isn't real, and it gives you a disappointment when it fails. Now, I've never said that in that order before because I've never dealt with that in that issue before. The issue with the rapture isn't to argue with me and give me your proof text, because I can give you as many as you give me. It's to take it to Jesus. It's to be faithful unto the end. Why does Jesus say, to them that overcome will I give a crown? Okay, well, it's different than overcoming. And by the way, you guys, the greatest slaughter in the history of modern-day Christendom was in China, when the Chinese Christians embraced the pre-tribulation rapture, and the prophets went around telling them not to worry, and guess what? They needed to worry. They needed to heed the words of the real ones, and as Watchman Nee said in his book, he said, it's that they failed to heed the true prophets of God and listen to the lies who promised them the easy way out. If someone tells you you're going to go through it tough, if they prepare you to go through it tough, it's like boot camp. It's like training, and that's what the churches have failed to do. That's why when God starts to judge, I'm telling you this, you couldn't get me within 100 yards of a church with a lukewarm pastor. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there when the people finally figure out they've been lied to. I don't want to be there if God chooses in that specific instance, and I certainly wouldn't go there if the church is saying, turn in your firearms to be good citizens, What about citizens of heaven? What about having a responsibility to your fellow men to make a difference and to help them? And by the way, I'm no bleeding heart liberal. I'm probably the antithesis of that, but neither am I a neocon, a conservative, a Republican. Those words all make me vomit because it's part of the same paradigm paradigm. It's two sides of an evil coin. And ladies and gentlemen, either get a death one way or death the other. And I like what somebody had a battle cry, no king but Jesus. That certainly doesn't make the liberals happy. But you see, everyone's looking for a political solution still. When I hear a Christian tell me they're Christian, then that they just can't wait for, the guy running against Obama to win, and even the Ron Paul people. I said, I love Ron Paul's stand on economics. I was trained in the Austrian School of Economics. I read Rothbard. I read all of the different, even guys like Gary North and oh, good night, so many of them for so many years. But the point being is that we're in a time period unlike any other. Jesus said there's never been a time like it, nor would there ever be another time like it again. And except the days be shortened, there be no flesh alive. Yet for the elect's sake, those days are going to be shortened. That's why everybody turns, they go to work on Monday, and it seems like you jump from Monday to Friday to Sunday and just to go start the whole thing over. Where's the rest of the week? It's gone. Time is speeding up.
Absolutely. And Steve, I've been having this great deception. I've been thinking about this for the last 3 days. I can't stop thinking about it. I've been reading the Bible, and all I can think of, and you hit the key, the political solution. So many people are sucked into that. Now we have people talking about, and this is for some reason what I've been hearing, the fall of the New World Order. If that were to happen, and certain people would come out and claim responsibility for that, and they would say, look, we took out the corruption, we took out the problems, come trust us. Something like that. The blue beam rapture. People are talking about this everywhere. There's the New Agers out there, and they're everywhere. And they've infiltrated everything on the Internet. And this is what they're...
Oh, sure, and I want to tell everybody, I categorically renounce the whole Drake movement. I categorically renounce the whole Benjamin Fulford thing. And look, those guys have their opinions, but can I tell you something? As Paul Volcker said, the former head of the Fed, hell, son, we own them all. The point being is that they're still locked into a paradigm, and look, they want... Can I tell you what everybody wants? They want peace without Jesus, because Jesus has his demands, and his demands are, number one, thou shalt have no other gods before me. If you guys even could, I think if any of us could get a true glimpse of the occultism in the White House, as of the occultism in the Illuminati, of the human sacrifice, even some of the Satanists that I've talked to over the years, even some of the ultimate Luciferians, they say, it still surprises us, Steve. And look, those guys talk to me. I'm not saying I carry on extensive conversations, but in times past when they have, he said, you Christians are too bloody dumb to understand. We're the ones behind abortion. I actually set them straight, and I said, no, you weren't. It was the fallen angels, but you're their offspring, so yeah, you can take claim for it in this generation. That is my answer, by the way. And the point is, they say they're just too dumb to see this is the ultimate sacrifice to Lucifer. That's why Hawk always says the Lucy sacrifice. That's what war is, you guys. War is the blood sacrifice of the Luciferian powers that be to their God of war. The Romans may have called him Mars, and the Greeks may have called him something else. Everybody else called but the bottom line, it's the same behind the scenes.
We're not going to stop being at war, are we? I mean, this is look, Syria. I mean, what's going on in Syria right now? I mean, just to put this in current context, Steve, we are essentially, as I said before, past the point of no return, but now we're going to be involved in Syria, which is going to bring in Russia and China. Obviously, that's unsustainable. All of this is going to come collapsing at one time, is it not? I mean, is this what you see?
Well, yeah, it is collapsing at one time. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Look, here's the problem. If the churches have been warning about what's happening in the Middle East, now look, I have. There are others who have been. Some people on talk radio focused on the Illuminati, and Alex has had his focus. I've had mine. Hawks had his. There are people that are on the radio for a long time, and I'm not just saying we're the only three guys. I'm just trying to make this quick. But the point is that it's fascinating to me is that, again, when I get that question you asked me from someone in the chat room, everything's normal. How in the universe, there we go, can they even make that statement with the fact that the nuclear emergency search teams are up, one faction of the government's trying to find them, the other faction of the government's trying to hide them. There's war in the heavens. There's war in our government. There's war in the military. There's war in the intelligence agencies. There's war in the church. There's war in the Catholic Church. There's war in the economy. There's war in the homes. Where can you go to be free from war? There's war, even if you don't deny it, or if you don't acknowledge it. The people that just ask you that, what about the chemtrails? What about the water they're drinking? What about the food they're eating? Okay, this is something really important. The Russians, and this is something that Hawks and Steve remind the people of this. The Russians are here, I'm reading what he wrote, are here now in Konos, are doing great terror to soften up targets. If you don't know what great terror is, shut up and go learn what great terror is, and then you can address the subject. The number one goal is, sow fear, create agitation, and they're on time with one of the most likely attack windows in the Middle East. Notice the Middle East and what's going on here are simultaneous eruptions, threats, almost concurrently happening in real time. And then he says now that Russia and Red China have put up to 90,000 troops into Syria and have all their nuclear weapons in Tartus and Latakia, as well as the new Panzer missiles and super sunburns they brought into Syria. Let me talk about super sunburns. Nobody was even talking about those when Hawk and I were talking about them. Basically what that means, you guys, is every single nuclear aircraft carrier up until a certain point was ultimately vulnerable. The Iranian military plan for our aircraft carriers, and all 8 are out to sea, by the way, now, is to basically overwhelm them with sunburn missiles launched from high speed, and I want to share this, high speed, what most people would consider, Bahama racing boats, their version of them, and simply overwhelm with superior numbers. And like one general from Special Operations told me, he said, look, I can handle 100 missiles, I can handle 200 missiles, but I can't handle 3,000 missiles, okay? And that was 3 or 4 years ago he told me that. And guess what? The headline right now is, Iran states, we will conquer the world, and especially Israel, with our overwhelming missile superiority. They're not just empty boasters, okay? Now listen, they're all ready for all-out World War III. That's the title of the show. You know what's funny, Doug, is prophetic as it is. So I would say this, no matter what I would speak about, and I'm not, look, it's just like when Jesus said, get thee behind me, Satan, he was serious. I could talk about anything, and immediately someone would rise up, and out of their personal or out of their demonically inspired or controlled catalyst, they would say, well, I don't think, or I don't believe, or blah, 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 everything's fine, okay? Yeah, everything's fine for them. Tell that to the people in Syria right now. Tell that to the people in Iraq. Tell that to the people in Chernobyl that still have children that are so deformed that they have to put them in institutions because it makes them vomit to look at their own kids. Oh, and by the way, did you see the news on Fukushima 4? The pool's dry. When Fukushima, the fact is that there should be massive requests from every, and here's the point, every reliable mainstream news media for the truth on Fukushima. There is no such thing. When the truth becomes known to the American people, when you know you're going to die and you're backed into a corner, you have no other choice but to lash out and fight. And the day is coming, Doug and Joe, and I believe we're talking a very near term, don't know when, but we're talking a absolute debacle that literally the scripture will be filled. Even in the skeptics' ears, sudden destruction come on, like a travail comes upon a woman with child. The Spetsnaz here, they're turning up all their emplacements of nuclear weapons. And again, if you don't understand what Spetsnaz is, I will spell it. S-P-E-T-S-N-A-Z, okay? You know what their goal is? You can go look it up on Wikipedia. They are assassins. They are trained to blow up dams, bridges, oil refineries, chemical plants, military bases, and then the good news for all the traitors on the blue list, they get to go and tap you. Tap is a euphemism for assassinate you. The satellite launch from Canaveral last Friday of a new spy satellite, maybe the old one got shot down. And what about all of the, quote, meteors? Or what about the people that are reporting F-16 fighters taking on red fireballs? If it was just a meteor, would they take on with an F-16? I don't think so. That's what we read today in the Midwest. So all these things are no longer just discontinuous. It's not like the old. Do you remember, you guys, the old magazines called True and Argosy?
Oh yes, I do.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of like the official talk radio version in printed form. Okay.
Yep.
I can remember reading True and Argosy because it was about adventure, it was about giants, and it was about strange civilizations and blah, 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 blah. Now all that stuff is coming into the forefront, and it's coming in so loud and clear, and it's like all the things that have been hidden or hidden away from people now are being brought out. And, I mean, it's like I can tell the switch is turning on some now, but I'm just praying that it would turn on more. So, you know, we have to work while it's yet day.